Hey guys, how are you? Thought I'd do a different format, a sort of Saturday evening on the couch ramble. Um, so, Facebook is going to be releasing a token. Samsung is imminent that they will be releasing a token as well. And what we're actually seeing here is the rollout of the corporatocracy into money creation. And the corporatocracy, remember, are partners, co-opted, cooperative partners with the dark states, the intelligence services that doesn't get elected, who occasionally push out some middle management stooges to do an every 4-year cycle, give the slaves the impression they're free narrative. But the real top of the pyramid that hides behind many people. I've always thought, if I was violently rich, I wouldn't want it to be known. I wouldn't want to have a public face, and I wouldn't want to be a public persona. I would never want to be in the Forbes 500 or the Wealth List or any form of that, or the Sunday Times Rich List. And those people that never get mentioned or never get listed in there and aren't recorded as super rich are your dark states, are your operatives, are your, particularly the intelligence services, the people behind the bankers in the banking cartel. So even the likes of Carney and Draghi are sort of senior middle management. They're not executive. Above the Bilderberg groups, people that just pop in, Kissinger and Associates, and those big families. Anyway, so these corporations that, the corporatocracy, you've got to remember the 4 pillars of the totalitarian state that I keep reminding everybody of. This is the creeping fascism that is coming and that is being driven through your government and your corporates, and you are the marks. This is an unholy trinity where you are the tethered goat, and there's 2 different kinds of pterodactyl and dinosaur that are licking their chops, and you don't realize it. And the one is rinsing you out for consumption and profits, and there's a kind of competition with other oligarchical, co-opted, semi-private monopolists, oligopolist corporations with massive lobbying interest with government. And does governments heed, such as leaving back doors in their platforms for surveillance to see which slaves are waking up and which ones are still in the illusion of their freedom. And the likes of Samsung and Facebook entering into blockchain just generally nauseates me immensely. You've got to remember that Samsung are the crowd that will soon, if not already, have, apart from their current technology, which even when a TV is in standby mode, will record potentially and listen to what you say. So they are kind of already like, many of you will be saying, well, I'd never have an Alexa or whatever. Amazon will be next, by the way, for a coin, and it's also been mooted. So we're talking about the unholy trinity of unicorn. Whenever you hear unicorn and that symbolism that goes with it, know you're dealing with a enslavement megacorp that spends an inordinate sum on lobbying, which is basically just giving money to politicians so that they pass soft laws that they can continue to entrench their monopoly stroke oligopoly, which is just a monopoly which is shared between a few big other megacorps, and pay the politicians to work for them. And supposedly the government does certain things that are soft on them. I want to just, while I'm just talking about this, I'm just going to put a roadblock on that topic, and I'm going to do a little sidebar right here. I was listening to Gore Vidal. Now, some of you should watch him. Really intelligent, great storyteller. I mean, he's totally listenable. People just love him. He's a raconteur, of the world. Amusing, but intelligent, and obviously quite wealthy in his time, and quite close to some pretty strong people. He was the grandson of a senator, Vidal as well, who knew Roosevelt and fell out of love with him when he, he seized the gold and committed an act of theft, essentially, and called him out as such, and then subsequently lost his Senate seat. So lots of interesting stories as a young kid through summer. In fact, I'm going to just have to tell you one. As a young kid of 10 years old, he jokingly said, government used to recess kind of at May and go away and wouldn't show up again until September, and everyone was in barefoot and swimming trunks. And he said that was great for the country because it meant there was no active new governing and government for quite a sustained part of the year, which meant they did less damage. And one of the worst inventions for this creeping parastatal state was air conditioners, because it actually meant government worked those extra months and, of course, continued to accelerate their agenda and do further damage and just get us to the statist fascist level that we're at now. And I love that. But anyway, he went and he had a virtually blind uncle or maybe granddad actually, but he was about 10 or 11. And he had to go fetch him. And, Washington in those days, you could still walk in. It's not the militarization zone of police like the other pillar that I'll mention of the 4 pillars. So he scampered in there as a kid in nothing more than his swimming trunks to go fetch his blind granddad for dinner, because he had to go get him because the guy couldn't see so well. And of course, the vice president walked in and said, "Oh, there's a naked young man in the thing." He's lucky he got away with it. If he did it today, he'd probably have been raped. But anyway, so he tells great stories, and you should watch him. And key point is Assange was trying to flash the cover of the book, Gore Vidal's book, and I bought it. Actually, the title's just gone and escaped me, because he used to write quite dry, dull-sounding, texty book titles, but he's an incredible storyteller. So forget the title, the book will be amazing. I'm waiting for it to arrive, and Assange was kind of flashing it when he was dragged out of Ecuador. So he's trying to pass us all a message, go understand this game, read the book. And most people won't. I'm not most people, and I don't expect you to be. I would suggest you do. But anyway, all of this sidebar has got to do with both Assange, got to do with his clear view on state and its role, and it's definitely worth a read. Anyway, so you got the air conditioner gag, how much damage it did us. It meant government had more time to work on our entrapment. Back to topic, and the likes of Amazon coming with a coin, Samsung coming with a coin, Facebook coming with a coin. These corporations are absolutely not your friend. They are quasi-statist corporations. This is the mixed economy we have. To you, you think they're successful, awesome entrepreneurs that built amazing corporations. Meanwhile, there was a contract with the devil, I expect, quite early on with this corporation, and they all fall into supporting the state in those 4 totalitarian state pillars, which I'll go over again. And you have the militarization of police, you have the politicization of justice, and you have number 3, the surveillance, the tracking and surveillance state, the digitalization of absolutely everything. And then you get what I call the 30 felonies a day. But the original book was written on 3 felons a day, which means we all are committing minor misdemeanors at any moment. I'm committing multiple misdemeanors. I'm a hateful conspiracy theorist. I'm challenging state. I'm doing all sorts of things. They'll rummage through your dustbin and find something. And you just have to think of Assange, assisted espionage for being a journalist and encouraging your source to bring material and helping him deliver you material of murder that people should know about, perpetuated by state, is a criminal offense. Okay, so you've got my gist. Anyway, back to the blockchain and the coins, because I've been sidebarred too easy here. This is not a good thing, because actually what's going to happen is it's the creation of money, because it's going to become more legitimized. They're going to be more stable. Crypto is going to lose its volatility. And in essence, we're going to have all these flavors and brands of ice cream, like licorice chili spice and all of them, and it's gone from strawberry, chocolate, vanilla to, which is your Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum type story, to just the choices to infinity.com. And of course, these corporations will now have further tracking capability. They're all earned their stripes in selling you out consistently and building backdoors to state. Amazon does all the military server hosting for the US military, all sorts of things. So they all, Facebook, Amazon, and their likes, and schmuckbucks with their transgender pushing, we're giving precedence for hiring transgender people and all of this. They're all signing up to the official narratives of oppression, from climate change to all of them. And they're going to be now creators of money. So this will make it look to the man in the street that money is privatized, and it isn't. It's statist, it's surveillance, and it's going to be there for your oppression. And all these new brands will come out, and because there will be big corporations, they'll have a lot of money in setting them up. They'll have a lot of rolling PR. And these are going to be to think of these as decentralized, control structure-esque, or truly secretive would be an absolute, or protective of your activities would be an absolute error of epic proportions. These are going to be, we are better than the banks at getting your stuff. We're better at knowing exactly what you're thinking, saying in the privacy of your home, which lets me into your brain, like that virus that goes into your brain and actually has certain animals commit suicide once the worms are inside. It's quite an interesting one. I know there's Brazilian worms that gets into locusts' brains and has them jump into water and kill themselves so that they can be eaten from the inside out. I mean, that is literally what these corporations... I must sound like a bunch of Joy Division musos on the walk into the inferno at the moment. But I don't see the steps. I'm not going to tell you sweet music. I think being awake is important, and I think understanding is being important. I don't think bumming yourself out unnecessarily is the most important thing, and consume in small bites. And if it gets you down, park it up for a while, go ride your bike and recognize the sun still shines. You can swim in the sea, go on a holiday, ride a motorcycle that makes you feel free. Even if it's a partial illusion because you're being tracked into all and sundry, but don't get bummed out. But for those that are ready to listen, it's not a good step. It's not a good step. Money is being made, will be made and issued by these. They're going to be like loyalty coupons. As you buy more stuff on Amazon, you might get a small amount, but then you're going to have to do this, and then you've got to pay for things with it, and then other things you don't buy on Amazon will be paid with those coins. That'll be scooped up so that Amazon can find a way that next time you buy it from them. Samsung likewise from their store, and various other things. So it's a pretty dark journey when the corporations, the megacorps, and people that thought that crypto was going to be freedom and thought they would let you have their own money. And I had a lot of people that would really bought, and it became a belief system. They need to understand it's a new technology that will be exploited by the old enemy that has never gone away and will never let you fully escape. They will never let you create your own money. And they know what entrenches their power, and the fact that they issue the money. Once you've got more money than you can spend, and you can personally... Imagine I gave you the power to just add as many zeros as you want to your bank account. It's an amazing power for a while, and you can sit staring, looking at these 100 trillions in your bank account, and 20 bank accounts all over the world, all with obscene amounts, and buy shares in every single major corporation and put one of your kids on the board. Eventually, once you've done all that, it's about the power. It's no longer, it becomes completely academic, the money. It's about the power to do what you want to do, and these people are... the more they get that of their power, then that's kind of like a drug. The more they need to be able to get away physically with murder, which is why we have an epic amount of exceedingly rich people that I actually think have got away with murder, pedophilia, and various other crimes and laugh at it. In other words, I am the king and I can consume my own kind and get a hit from it. It's a pretty dark topic, and you know, the likes of Hollywood and all of these, I think there's cliques and organizations and people have black books on each other, but it's not a positive space and it's not a positive development when the corporatocracy is going to be getting released. It's different if it's Joe Schmo with his white paper that does not have the levers of power that a megacorp has, creates a coin and it actually has some unique features and it suddenly expands and grows. And he's dedicated to liberty. You know, you think the guys at Anarchapulco and Dollar Vigilante that have very firm views on freedom, non-militarization, liberty to the individual, taxation being the equivalent of theft. It's not something you've agreed to, and reduction in size of government. You're just not going to do that. And, you know, so these corporations, it's essentially won't be long before the IMF will have its own or will co-opt something like Ripple that has been done. She's already been seen standing next to their various board members, Lagarde, and there is a role for the SDR potentially to play when we get a supernatural currency for when we fail out of the next major debt failing, which will lead to, you know, sort of freeze up of all the banking system in a synchronized manner. That's why the globe has been synchronized and everybody's had to create a debt bomb. And that means housing bubbles for a while and all of this until they get properly larded up. Everybody needs to be a heroin addict. You know, you all got to take a little bit of opium and then a little more and a little more. And that's so that they can all fall down, so that we can all be lepers in the leper colony. It doesn't help to be the one healthy guy. Anyway, so it's not a good development. Expect the Samsung to be brutally surveillance. Expect Amazon to be brutally intrusive and surveillance in an unrestricted manner where governments are bought off. I want to point out on the whole Gore Vidal, it's interesting in history. You know, in the old days, in tax breakdown of the percentage of the tax revenues, you used to, about 45% of what the government got would come from individuals on personal taxation and about 45% from corporate tax in his era of, you know, the period in and around the 40s and 50s. And today, you know, you're still in and around direct and indirect taxes, 45%. It's exceedingly high. And the megacorps are paying around 10. And in actual fact, the bigger the corporation, the less in percentage terms they pay. The less, let me just say that again, the less they pay. So the SMEs and the medium-sized that don't have transnational, if you're a medium small corporation in the US, you'll be paying a much higher percent than the likes of Apple. And every now and then they'll say, don't worry, stack all your dividends for your offshore earnings for a while. Every second or third presidency, we'll do a tax moratorium and you can bring it in and you get it all in for free, like they did for Apple that Trump just passed. So what you actually have is the corporations aren't paying their share and they spend on lobbyists. Amazon and Google are the biggest lobbyists of government, and that's basically just paying money to me as a politician. You know, if I was a senator, I spend 18 million here, 15 million there, all of that. You know, this is just like largesse for senators, and they'll be told what's going to fly, and you know, they'll be like Bono, the insider clowns, and the cool, only he's totally not cool, the then once cool rock stars and the whole Hollywood and celebrity shtick that all get given the little wise up. You know, Israel was all tapped up to buy Apple, and there was so much money going into Apple from large amount of Israelis. You've got to just follow it's all just insider money that these things are going to pump and run. And of course that they're going to get their tax cut brought in by Trump and bring in all that money without any great largesse. So it's a complete rigged scam of a game where the corporations are not paying their share, and they're doing this with the cooperation of government so that you pay additional, and so that with the co-opting of lawmaking government and corporatocracy with lobbying of government is a dance partner, a husband and wife team that helps beat the abused child. And you are that kid. And you're being gang raped by the two of them, and the one's looking the other way while this, and the other one's helping, etc. And there's no getting around it. And the big corpse coming for tokens is just another step of the variety that'll be offered, and they'll be pumped and they will dominate because these corporations dominate by nature. And competition is sin, and they will lock out competition. And they'll kind of quasi-compete amongst each other in that space, in the same way that sort of, Apple competes with Samsung on phones, and Android competes with the App Store, the Apple Store on the Apple Store and the devices, software, and Microsoft competes with, with Windows and iOS. But they're all statist. They're all fascist, which means they are handing over supernatural power and control. The difference between a socialism and an absolute fascism is that socialism kind of tolerates family. It tolerates it. It doesn't enjoy it. It wants state embedded between husband and wife and parents and child to a degree, but it accepts that there's some degree of a role for family. Fascism is out and out designed to absolutely interject state in everything, in who's allowed to get married, who isn't, what should be made cool, who gets jobs, who doesn't, what gender, what nationality, what sexual inclination, all of these things. They're interjecting on personal preferences and profiles. That's just simply not its job. And they are aggressively creating criminalization of contrary opinion and hate speech denunciation, trying to control your speech, which is what Jordan Peterson pushed back against in terms of what you're even allowed to say without being condemned, judged, or left to be the silent, muzzled masses that dare and say various things. It's absolute fascism. Hate speech doctrine is fascism. Doesn't matter if some moron wants to sit on Twitter and shout, "You're an effing moron," or whatever the hell he wants to do. Just that has to be allowed. People just don't have to listen to it. They can block. They don't have to be part of it. But freedom of speech and real liberty has to be allowed. And we've got to a point where we're having obligatory diversity. You've got Irishmen on YouTube saying, "Hey, why so many people being pumped into our country of not of our ethnicity?" What's happening, and how's this been allowed to happen, and all of this? How do they get to Ireland? I mean, we're an island off an island that's off this continent that's not even part of Africa. And how they're getting piped in? Well, you're part of a control structure that is the EU, that is Merkel, Soros, open society, and you maybe haven't done your job on demographics, and they want to brown out various areas, and it's been injected in there, and to say anything to the contrary makes you a white nationalist racist and a bigot. And actually, the fact that Israel isn't having this enforced on them, Japan on Iceland isn't having this enforced on them, but that you are, and you happen to ask why, makes you, they call you the fascist, you the Nazi. And this is my, I'm covering a lot of topics here, but the whole agenda is all tied to the same octopus. Actually, it sounds like I'm rambling on a lot of topics. I'm talking about the head of the octopus, and I'm going down each what looks distinct and separate tentacles, but is all part of the same control structure. And there is no freedom in crypto. You will be chased down. Your transaction and your money will be controlled, is being kept on ledger. And I almost feel sorry for Bitfinex. I don't know what happened. They lost control over 850 million. It's a bit odd. I think that happens more than we know. But Merrill Lynch had the exact same. They commingled client funds with their own company capital when they were in trouble. They basically took people's money and shored up their balance sheets, and then got caught out. And then the New York Attorney General worked with them to restate and get things back in their silos and shored up their balance sheet. How is it that under the same circumstances, this Attorney General in New York, for a company that doesn't have any American clients, let alone New York clients, is subpoenaing this crowd? What you're actually seeing is it's more about, and this is a mega negative, and I know some of you will go, oh, screw Bitfinex, and there's that troll. I know Bix Weir talks about the one guy and he's a fraud and all of that. Let's say that all may be. The point is, you're allowing jurisdiction of government into crypto. There has been the slow creep of government into crypto. What the hell is an Attorney General in New York doing for a company that is not American, not based in America, and takes no American clients? Can someone answer me that? And what is actually happening is you're all getting lost in the detail of the story and forgetting the principle. You've got to play rugby, you've got to play the ball. The game is to get the ball over a line and dot it in rugby. You can get caught up in a fist fight over personalities at a ruck, and somebody else is picking up that ball and running and taking it over your try line and grabbing themselves a 7-pointer because you started to play the man. Never mind if Bitfinex is criminal or not. I don't have a view. I don't know. The question is, your enemy, the state, government, the 4 pillars of the totalitarianism that is ever escalating, ever creeping on you, and is going to take away your liberty and will never allow you to have your free money. Who's your enemy? Repeat after me. All structures of government or quasi-corporatocracies cooperating in a statist manner with government is my enemy. An individual company that is being persecuted by government means that they probably not cooperated, haven't been compliant, and are being disciplined. In actual fact, I'm petrified of them going down Bitfinex, but if anything, I would want to support them more than the likes of Coinbase, who handed over all the tax details straight away and all of that, whether you're paying your tax as you should be, because they'll come after you if you don't, but keeping it at least as low as possible or not. What you don't want is to support statist organizations and corporations. And this is a massive overreach in the same way of Julian Assange. What we all have to unite on, and this is the key point that I'm getting here, is we have to unite against fascist statism, the injection of government and the politicization of justice, one of the 4 pillars, on where it has no power and has no place. You're silently watching an extension of government implementing power where it has no freaking jurisdiction. Do you as an Australian want to be arrested by the Attorney General in New York for a misdemeanor when you're not a citizen, never been to America and done that? Are you going to be happy when that starts happening in scale? Soon we'll have an IMF or a UN type structure, which might have a different name, that will actually be like a global crime thing. They will have jurisdiction to arrest anyone, anywhere. Hate speech in Iceland. You could have some little island off Fiji and they could arrest someone they don't like there from up high in this quasi-IMF UN global juristic location that will be politicized and will be seek to chase the Hunger Game non-compliance, the deviance of the people not complying with the statist game. We have to push back against statism and the corporatocracies that are working hand in hand in entrapping us into this new fascist order of complete surveillance. Samsung, Amazon, Schmuckbucks or Starbucks and all these other unicorns that will release tokens are not your friends. And if you punt on them and you want to be in them because you think you're going to get a pump, good luck. Same as the guys in Lyft on the IPO. They will cash out at your expense because one thing is certain, the greed is unparalleled and you are always the mark. That doesn't mean you can't make money. If I could short every unicorn, Uber, Lyft, and every IPO in the traditional stock market that is listing from the get-go, I would. Lyft has crashed. They're all just cashing out. Their IPO is their cash out at your expense. And these guys will ICO and they will cash out on you as well. Don't think you're going to make a fortune, and don't think you're going to have privacy. Don't think you won't be shredding. You're going to be shedding metadata like a flipping old bastard sheds dandruff, mate. They're going to be hoovering that up. They're going to be answering your questions for you and offering products that you shouldn't know. They're going to be embedded. They're going to be answering your thoughts before you can even think them. And I don't want that level of intrusion. You'll be arrested in 10 years' time for thought crime. Never mind what you say. And it is a dark, dark day that these guys are getting into crypto. It confirms the complete non-libertarian status of most cryptos. And the blockchain itself. Remember, the ledger keeps everything. It's just another underlying market for me to trade, where there's a lot of technically non-astute people. I get to play marbles with the 10-year-olds, with someone with having the experience of a 50-year-old. So it's almost easier than trading FX. That's it. I have no illusions. Yes, there's a Monero, there's a Zcoin, there's various other things. If there's anything that has true secrecy, it will be hunted down and persecuted and hacked ad nauseum. The best coin is the one that's most suffering from hack attacks, because most hacking is your dark state intelligence services. As I've told you a story before, in SA, when there was a really talented Indian kid who hacked into, as a young lad, into the US military defense. He now does talks and is involved. They came and they fetched him in a helicopter and he works for them now. This is what happens if you have that talent. Hackers are not private individual guys on any great scale. The hackathons it's a recruiting industry for dark state. And, you've got to understand this. Anyway, it's a long old, I suppose, a rant. I'm not huffing and puffing and slamming my fist with quite the same vigor. It's late at night on a Saturday. But the advent and the development of corporatocracy coins is not a good event. It is a symptom